One-step equations with multiplication and division. This is a beginning lesson, and it's a digital lesson. And it starts with explaining what a variable is and how it works in an algebraic equation. We need to isolate that variable. So we're going to do that. We need to rearrange the terms of the equation so that the variable is alone on one side of the equal sign. So we're going to do that by using the mathematical operations of addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Now, algebraic equations are just like a balance scale. What you do to one side of the balance scale, you have to do to the other to keep it balanced. And so if you multiply by 3 on one side of the equal sign, you must also multiply by 3 on the other side to keep it equal. So the key is to isolate the variable or get that variable alone on one side of the equal sign. Now, once you've gone over all of these slides with the students, then they've got some drag and drop vocabulary here. So they're going to place these terms in the correct place in the sentence frames. So the unknown value in an algebraic equation is called the variable. So they click and hold on the edge, and then they can move it into place. To find out what it equals, you need to isolate the variable, and so on. Now the next slide is just asking for opposite operations. So if you want to isolate the variable, you have to do the opposite operation. So here we want to isolate this x, so the opposite of multiplying by 8 is to divide by 8. We're always going to look for that opposite operation. Here, x divided by 5, so the opposite of dividing by 5 would be to multiply by 5. So we're going to move that next to the equation, and they're going to do that with the others. Now here's an example of how to solve an algebraic equation. I always have my students place a line through the equal sign, and that way you can easily see the two sides that you need to keep balanced. So here we have 3x equals 9. This is multiplication. So the opposite of multiplying by 3 would be to divide by 3. And I need to do that on both sides of the equation. Here, if I divide by 3, I end up with just an x, 1x. And we don't need to write the 1, it's just x equals 3. Now we know what it equals. Now once you're done solving, and this one seems pretty simple because it's a simple equation, but once these equations get longer and more difficult, it's going to be really important that you check to see if your answer is correct. So here I have an answer of 3, and I'm going to go back to the original equation and replace x with my answer and see if it works. If it works, then you know that you have the right answer. Now they're going to be doing some equations. They're going to fill in these text boxes. So here we're going to divide both sides by 5. So they just type that in, and then they get y equals 5. And then they're going to do the same thing. They've got more to solve. Here's 4 more equations to solve. Now they're going to solve a couple of equations and then check their answer. So they're going to put their answer in the original, in place of the variable in the original equation. See if it works. If it doesn't work, then students are going to go back and try that again. Now here we have a division problem. To isolate the variable, we're going to do the opposite here of dividing by 4. We're going to multiply by 4 on both sides. These two cancel out because 4 divided by 4 is 1. So we just get 1x equals 12. And students are going to be doing the same thing here, solving some equations by multiplying as the opposite operation. And then they're going to solve one of these equations and check their answer. And then on the final slide, they're going to use the line tool to connect an equation with its solution. So we're going to come up here to line, click on line, and it gives you a little plus sign. So wherever you want that line to start, just click. And you get this little line here with a blue box around it. Now the two blue circles on each end, you click and hold, and then you can move that line wherever you like. Now students can play around with this. They can change the color of the line. And they can choose, they can change the thickness of the line. So they can do that and make it their own. And they get a little nice work at the end. So this is one-step equations with multiplication and division.